Listen, you know when a Zendaya movie begins before the logo even comes out that it's gonna be good.
Decimate that little bitch.
So Challengers is the newest tennis movie that's like not even really about tennis. They had Zendaya out there method dressing in ball heels, a tennis dress. Yeah, everything she wore was causing a racket. But then people saw it and were divided by that ending. Everyone had one of the three that they thought was the true bad guy and who they were defending. People were catching things on second watches that revealed the true characters. It got me wondering with every tennis match that I was watching, who's in the throuple? Who are they playing for? What is their backstory?
Because that's the thing about the tennis, right? Is this that builds
Get
this.
into the flow.
Do you know what I mean?
It's a
Anticipation, and we say, and we've said many times that the tennis is the sex in the movie.
In my opinion, this movie's a must-watch for the acting, for the cinematography, that score that has you bumping in your seat. And after catching it 3 times, I noticed a couple of things that really do change the story, whether it was a happy ending or not. So full spoilers ahead. Let me explain.
He said to me, I know next to nothing about tennis, but I know a great deal about desire.
So the movie focuses around this final match that keeps cutting to flashbacks. So they're doing that Slumdog Millionaire style in order to add context to what they're actually fighting for. Even the writer broke down in the script that it's kind of like a tennis match that's going back and forth, going as far as even calling it an anime tennis movie. The earliest scene that we see with the boys is them playing doubles before they go on to play triples. And these two are humping each other after wins. They're kissing each other through their trophies. Like, you can tell that they're best buds. But on a rewatch, you realize why they act the way that they do, since they're both like really spoiled rich kids whose parents just threw them to an academy, and that's where they met at 12. Pretty much, they grew up together and were raised by coaches, so that's really all that they know.
A lot of the training Josh and I did together, and we're like, okay, we're gonna do this together. And, you know, I found out just like a week ago that Josh, like, fully was not sticking to the nutrition. He was eating whatever he wanted. And then, like, behind, like...
I was taking reps, which is really important. If you're working out, you should take reps.
True.
Yeah. After their win, they grabbed some snacks to go see Tashi play, who's meant to be this prodigy star that's already picked up by Adidas. And after one match, these boys are lit for her. After that match, they all go to this Adidas party, but what's really funny is that in the script, Pat tries to convince Art to stay back and, you know, to rest because that's what he needs. But then both of them beat each other to the party. Either way, they both end up drooling over her dancing to Nelly.
I also want to say that that was not the song that was playing while I was there. It was, it was a Bowie song that was playing.
They introduce themselves as Fire and Ice and gush over her win against this player called Anna Mueller, who Tashi just straight up calls a sore racist, but remember her? She's gonna come back later. They then wait till the after party when she's done taking pictures, where they walk to the beach just to kind of be serenaded by her. That's where she explains that they're not real tennis players because to her, they don't understand the sport. To her, it's this conversation without words, a relationship that everyone watches and can feel.
For about 15 seconds there, we were actually playing tennis. It was like we were in love.
After connecting, they now have this like little love triangle going on, and they all think they make different points. You got Tashi, who thinks she always has the right angle. Art's a cute beta, but it's Patrick who keeps them a polygon because he's always obtuse.
Are you on Facebook?
What?
He's asking for your number. And so am I.
Now they're volleying back and forth all the reasons why they should or shouldn't be together when they go back to the hotel. Like, Tashi doesn't want to be a homewrecker between the boys. Art keeps mentioning that, yo, Patrick has a girlfriend, so, you know, he has to be benched. And then Patrick's retelling the story of when he taught Art how to jerk off. Like, literally, this man coached him through it. Not gay. Crazy part is that they were both thinking of the same girl when they were doing that. And then the same girl gets injured the following week, so... yeah, these two are some bad luck Bryans. They then get on the bed and do the Taika Waititi special, but even though Pat sat first, she does kiss Art at the start. Then him. Then the boys start kissing each other while she just watches. Like, dudes forgot she was even there. Tashi then turns their tennis balls blue as she leaves them there with a challenge that whoever wins tomorrow between the two of them will get her number. So what used to be a fun sport for the boys is now them competing for Tashi. Patrick beats a stiffy, then beats him the next day, winning the date, but all Art cares about is looking for some newsies because he really wants to know did they do it or not. So Patrick serves him the answer by signaling him with his signature tick of putting the ball in the middle of the racket and letting him know, yeah.
Patrick is fire, and he is ice.
A year later, Tashi and Art are in Stanford together, leading their tennis teams, and even though this dude knows that his buddy's still dating her, he's asking her out for lunch so that he can feed her seeds of doubt. Patrick comes in to visit and sees this boy before he sees this girl, and they're just chasing each other around in the courts. I'm not gay. And this scene is funny because you realize that there's like an entire montage of these, let's call them churro-shaped foods that they eat.
No hot dogs, no popsicles. You know how many foods are shaped like dicks? The best kinds.
But I think Superbad is one of the great movies of our time.
Even got that stool pull. I mean, even the behind the scenes are not hiding it. But after catching up, Art dusts his face and gets churroed. But this is where Art kind of starts playing with him outside of the court by serving up even more doubt.
At the end of that scene where we walk off, and Mike tripped me up during a take. It was actually class, and it was so good and so unexpected. But in that moment, I had this real sense of like, why would he do that to me?
Patrick then goes to his girlfriend's very cold dorm room, and they have this back and forth that made it one of my favorite scenes of the year. It's this talk about relationships and if you see each other as peers or not. Like, she's calling him out for coasting on his matches since he did go pro while they're in college, but he's always losing it in the second half. Meanwhile, he feels she's too obsessed with the sport and all they ever talk about is tennis. Really, it just breaks down how people approach their craft, you know, what would be a hobby or work, and that if you're not happy in that aspect of your life, then you're not going to be happy in the rest of it.
You're not a member of my fan club?
Because of that fight, Patrick doesn't show up to her match, and now Tashi's all in her head. So when it comes to this rally that she's in the middle of, this girl's knee pops out on a slide, and it was nasty. Like, I had to pull up my theater recliner to check mine. Once she's in recovery, Patrick rushes in with the "I told you" shirt that he snatched, and it's Art that tells him to leave them alone. And he does.
It's like when Art ruins Patrick's relationship with Tashi and sets off this carnage.
Say it again.
Yeah. Patrick kind of loves it. He sort of, when he accuses you of being a snake, it's like, I'm grabbing you and I'm loving it. So I think, in the end, I really enjoyed this character that really owns his troubles and celebrates them and celebrates the dance that these characters play. And, you know, I often think that Justin's script and the scenes, each scene, most of the scenes are duologues and they are like tennis matches, and you're trying to undercut the other character, and then that character kind of pulls the rug from underneath the other one.
Now it's Art by her side, slithering in, helping her in her recovery, but even though she has that dog in her, she realizes quickly that tennis is just gone from her, and it's not going to be a future that she has, and now she has to pivot.
Love means nothing in tennis. Zero. It only means you lose.
Good to know all the MJs feel the same way.
13-15.
Unfortunately, my only skill in life is hitting a ball with a racket.
3 years after her injury, Art meets with Tashi at an Applebee's where they split a 2 for $20, and he pitches her a coaching deal so that she could manage him. He's also stopped talking to Patrick, but hasn't stopped wondering if he could have beaten him on the court. So instead, he shoots his shot with Tashi, and they make out in the parking lot. Now, if only we had gotten those breakfast scenes while she was still with Patrick.
Some of the greatest culinary experiences have been at IHOP in my life. I didn't know, I thought it was a bank. So, or an insurance company. And I went in, discovered it was the International House of Pancakes, and
after about a year, we see that Tashi is coaching Art in Atlanta, where he's favored to win, but then Patrick pulls up with that "I told you" shirt that he snatched back in college. In the script, it says that he was also playing in the tournament, but lost in the quarterfinals, because clearly Patrick had his eyes set on another win. So at 3 a.m., he scopes out Tashi, who stayed up late the night before her man's last match of Atlanta, and they link up. Like SportsCenter was talking about the US Open. She heard we open.
Oh my God.
Truthfully, she wants to play tennis. I think it was her one true love, but I also think that she came from a different background than these two. And like, she didn't have another option or a backup plan. Like, this was going to be her life. So when it's taken away from her so prematurely, it's devastating, but she's also the kind of person that won't allow herself to grieve it or won't give herself a moment to even acknowledge that it's happened. Instead, she's like, pivot, shift, moving on.
Speaking of, that Anna girl from earlier gets mentioned on the TV during this time, and it turns out that she's like at the top of the women's league now.
Well, there just hasn't been really anyone on the women's side who can give her much of a challenge.
Man, poor Tashi has to live knowing that the worst player is at #1 while she can't play. And she's stuck coaching this guy.
2000 spike? Boom.
2000 spike, bro.
One of the biggest questions has been who Lily's father is. And in my opinion, I do think she's too young to have come out of this little rendezvous in Atlanta. But, you know, everyone plays Maury, so who really knows? But I did laugh at that Spider-Verse shout out that the girl gives, because Luca had said, the director, that he put it there for the producer, Amy Pascal, who made the whole Spider-Man trilogy. And she's actually the one who got the movie together.
Quite a bit of competition. But I think what really locked it, and I don't think Z knows this, but I'll say it now, is we promised we'd get her to do it.
Hey, If it works for everybody, it works for everybody. We then jump a couple weeks before the final match in the future, where we see that they've both been injured at that point. But Tashi's kind of jealous that Art actually got to recover from his, and he's playing again. Problem is, Boy's on a bigger losing streak than the Pistons, and she's pissed because all he needs is one US Open to complete his career Grand Slam. That's why she's hitting him with the Han Solo.
I love you.
I know.
This is where we see how much he's actually managing for him, from his schedule down to the sponsors. And like, I was surprised to find that the product placement in this movie was actually pretty good. If you've listened to me talk for the past decade, you know that's a big shout out for me to give to a movie, because the way that they used just drinks to show how characters are different was really interesting. Seeing their shoes tell the time and how far they've come in their careers. Like, they even had a Dunkin' Donuts scene that was better than Al Pacino's.
It's Dunk!
Dunkachino?
Don't mind if I do!
Pretty much anything that you've seen censored in a trailer, yeah, just know that that's probably an ad, so seeing them switch out the cigarette brand might mean tobacco money. Then there's the whole world that they create with the costumes, which was incredible. Like, I feel they made a bunch of merch for fans just to wear, and you only see it for a couple of seconds, but it feels lived in. The fact that the characters switch shirts more than they do partners, that Tashi's got double necklaces to go with her entanglements. Pretty much Jonathan Anderson, who did the costumes, he killed it, since it not only feels real, but it's calling out how stars find success through their branding. And then you couple that with Zendaya being producer, I mean, you got this meta-ness of her working overtime.
Your bestie Darnell, which I love, he's in the film.
It was Luca who asked me to ask him if he would do it, because he said, I feel like he has a spirit of truth and justice.
Yeah.
It's funny, me and Darnell, we met on set. Like, he was my stand-in back on Casey Undercover, and that's how we met and connected and became family.
I knew I recognized him from those YouTube reaction videos with her. Man was too swagged out compared to all the other people on that court. After losing another match, Tashi sets up some easy matches to boost his confidence, Rocky III style, and it's at the same spot from the beginning, known as the Tired Town Challenger, which was also the title they used while filming. That's where we see Patrick again, getting more cards declined than people do him, and he's playing in the Challenger because the big prize is $7,200. But they also say that if you lose early, like, you're still guaranteed $400, so someone throw me Serena's skirt, because I'll walk in with con balls to play. The crazy thing again is that he has rich parents, so when you're really looking at it, Pat's doing as much acting as Josh O'Connor is when he's checking his balances. This boy's pretending to use Tinder as Airbnb so he can have a place to stay, but he's really just fake poor. Dude just doesn't want to take a seat on his family's company board. To me, I'm assuming that they're into politics, or they're like the Succession family. Clearly they're really big, since early on when they were at the Adidas party, they said that their house was bigger than that venue, and they specifically have him listening to politics on the radio. So I think that there's a lot that you can infer there that isn't put on the screen. So seeing how he's swiping both men and women on apps, you can assume there was also some pushback in his lifestyle, and that's probably why his family sent him to a boarding school. I mean, boy can't even park straight.
And I think for her, tennis, why it's so devastating that she loses is because her access to tennis is different than the boys, right? Like it's for her, it's a privilege to be able to be there. There is no backup plan. There isn't mommy and daddy. So it's her whole life.
Before he even checks in, Patrick has the line judge sharing her food, since, he's always eating other people's snacks. But she also lets him know that Art is the wildcard pick who just entered the tournament. But man, I wish we got to see Art's reaction when he found out Pat was there.
Assume you planned this?
Not this part.
Eventually, Patrick locks eyes with Tashi as he's looking for a place to stay, but later on, he even pitches Art's plan of having her coach him for his final years. And this girl keeps his number? Also, I like how she slapped the cigarette out of his mouth, and this boy really went to the ground to pick it up.
The thing I like most about this film, in some ways, we talk about these three kind of characters who make terrible mistakes. Even if we're very different from these characters in reality, is to accept that we are all capable of being these characters. People make mistakes. That doesn't define them.
Both end up making it to the finals, so the day before, they're practicing their backhands in the sauna. Art says that they're not peers because Pat started from the bottom and he's still there, that he's just stopping by this place. This is where Patrick lives. And then he hits him with the big line of the movie.
This is a game about winning the points that matter.
Then immediately after, he drops the ball. The night before the final match, he tells his wife that he's sick and tired of being sick and tired, so it's time to retire. And her response is, I'll leave you. So now it's Atlanta Part 2 with Patrick.
If you don't win tomorrow, I'll leave you.
At midnight, she calls him up and tells him that she's not there to screw him, but to screw him, since she's asking him to lose that final match so that Art can win.
I'm taking such good care of my little white boys.
They then casually fight outside like they're not on the set of Twister, and she spits on him. And he likes it. This really is that rich kid who likes being humiliated.
You want to judge them, but you can't resist them.
They then go from swapping spit to swapping spit as they sit on his bed and smash in front of the billboard of her and her husband. This woman really went from an Aston Martin to a Honda CR-V? Is that good? This scene also has some interesting slow-mo and freeze frames because they were choppier than some of the 1970s movies. But then they switch cameras for that final match and you see that they do have the most advanced high-definition slow-mo I've ever seen in theaters. Like they were catching more sweat than a Gatorade commercial. They were getting shots below the court. This man got the POV of the racket. There's a split-screen diopter shot. Hell, they said that most of what they were hitting were CGI tennis balls. So at one point, they had me ducking when they were aiming at the camera. But then you got that score. Ooh, one moment I'm at the Dolby Theater, next scene that bass is bumping like I'm at a gay nightclub.
Love, in my reading of it, it's always about overcoming the impossibility, finding yourself into the gaze of the other and being accepted for who you are. And that can be said as a terminal thing of these characters. They are something that they don't want to be,
right?
And they want to defeat their own nature, but that's impossible.
Finally, they get their rematch. Patrick scratching inside his elbow, which I know a lot of people have been saying that it might be drugs. I think he's sending secret signals to Tashi. Tashi's got her hair working harder than Amy Pascal's as she's whipping back and forth. And then you got these two getting more violations than Draymond Green.
You're stupid.
I know. I'm just not as disturbed by it as you are.
They then delay that final point more than they delayed the movie almost, it feels like. Like this final set dragged more than their feet did on the court. Luca's just edging the audience in their seats. I swear the violins from Toxic were playing in the background. And then this man dangles another thing in front of his buddy, and that's signaling to him that he slept with his wife. Again.
Code violation.
Even while the dude ends up smiling. Now they're thrusting back and forth in a rally. They're doing the same slides that cost her future. And in the end, Art pulls an Air Jordan, landing on his friend for the hug as his wife screams just like she did earlier. Now, obviously, they leave the ending more open than their relationship. But I know a lot of people, they agree with Art. Give me a signal. Give me something about the tennis.
I think I even wrote at some point in the script, it's a Mexican standoff.
To me, they're just kind of reenacting the Atlanta scene again for the ending. It is a tournament where all three are playing. The night before his finals, Pat swoops in and takes his girl from a fancy hotel. Art just takes it. But then he wins, giving Tashi the 15 seconds of true volleyball that she wanted. So if you really wanted an answer, I think the movie kind of shows you a pattern, and that's possibly a way that it went, and they kind of all get their loopy little three-way recipe going on.
People come out of this movie and you get these kind of extraordinary, very strong views about, Tashi's terrible, Patrick's terrible, Art's a hero, and then the next person will come out and go, Patrick's a hero, Art's awful, and I would just put my hat in the ring and just say that I think they're all flawed, but they're all beautiful. They all want that feeling that they had at the beginning when they first met, and the realization, which is that the three of them need each other. They need to be as a three.
Is it messy? More than your room. But in the happiest of endings, they finally come together. That said, we are in a post-Twilight world, so even the actors have you picking sides.
We were in London, and Zendaya was straight up like, show of hands. Who likes Tashi the most?
Team Tashi.
Now, I know that people see Tashi as the main manipulator because she's the manager and the one who puts tennis above everything, but you don't really get a lot of scenes that are intimate for her or outside of the boys. But to me, if we're judging based on who caused the worst consequences,
I'm Team Art. Team Art is the biggest snake. Won't be able to change my mind.
He started the
whole
what the
again.
So I did. See, they said this little twerp was a sneaky one, and one line that stood out to me was them saying that he specifically plays percentage tennis, meaning that he's just waiting for another one to mess up. That's why he mentions guilt for Tashi's injury, because he knew he was pressing buttons to end up with her, and losing her career then makes her depend on his, trapping her. There's even a bit early on where Art tells Patrick to let him win some matches because of his grandma who's dying. And years later in Atlanta, Patrick sees that he's still using the dying grandma excuse, except her dying locked Tashi into a marriage when he was at his lowest. That's why I think it's almost like a Midsommar bit. Also, dying of a stroke in a tennis movie, this is a dark comedy.
It's nice to see you lit up about something, even if it's my girlfriend.
So Luca's breakdown of a triangle makes sense because the closer 2 points come together, the farther one gets. Like he puts it, it's about people wanting what other people don't want to give. So in a sense, the movie ends where it begins, with these two finally coming back together.
I believe that tennis is her first love, and the boys are just kind of avenues for her to keep playing because she can't play herself.
I think Tashi called it early on when she said she didn't want to be a homewrecker, so whether they choose each other and leave her out of it, whether they remained her Twinkies and she was their hostess, they were always looking to use each other to feel complete. So the moral of the story is, never go to an Adidas party.
I tried to see the relationship between Patrick and Tashi and the relationship between Patrick and Art as like one entity.
In the end, to me, it's a little bit like Whiplash, where you get this crazy ending where it's this big high climax for all of them, but then you realize it might be really rough afterwards, because if they all have a year of tennis and that's what's holding them together, I mean, it's just going to be the same cycle again, you know? So when it comes to that final match, I'm not a pro at tennis rules, but I'm pretty sure there was still more of the game to go since it was his serve. We just don't see the ending because the movie wraps right when the characters get what they want. It's telling the audience that they only came for the 15 minutes of tennis that'll entertain them. Everything else is a fugazi. In the end, it's only showing you
the points that matter.
Thank you all for checking out this video. I'm curious to know your thoughts and also where that wig cut is, because I need to know what these scenes were for or what they were doing with this. It's probably some like crazy flashbacks.
It's the wig for me. How do you like your creation?
Great, right?
I'm curious to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Like I said, shout out to Mike Faist. I think everybody was great in this movie, but they said they had this boy eating 10,000 calories to gain weight. That all of his sweat was real while they were spraying the rest of them because this dude was running in between sets.
Most of the sweat seen on Mike Faist is his sweat. Most of mine isn't. It's cool.
It's just water.
It's like fragranced water.
And it still blows my mind that this is the guy from Dear Evan Hansen, but hey, it's even more interesting to see how it's connected to another movie that's related to the writer.
Right before the pandemic, Past Lives came across to me as like something to read and possibly put my self on tape for. Then cut to, we're doing Challengers, and I'm getting to know Justin, and we're in the hotel lobby, and we're getting to know each other. And I'm like, so tell me about yourself. And he's like, oh, well, I'm married. And my wife, he was like texting. He's like, sorry, my wife, she just finished cutting her first movie. I was like, no way, that's incredible. What's the movie? And he starts telling me the story. No, and I'm like,
that is so cool.
I'm like, hang on. Did I tell you this story?
So having the screenwriters connected with past lives in this movie, I think is really interesting because one, I'm looking forward to every movie these two do because y'all know Past Lives was one of my highest rated movies of last year. But I don't know what's with them. And arts, like there's always an art in one of these movies. I don't get it, but I love his approach to his scripts because he's always saying that he doesn't go to movies to see people that are likable. He looks to see people that he can empathize with on screen. So I'm curious to see what he works on next. I know he's got another Luca movie, but I mean, just the stuff that he had in the script. ATP is the name of like the tennis organization, and then you look at their initials and it's ATP. Like this man just knew he wrote a hit.
Beautiful, it's masterful.
If you like this movie, I'd recommend these as well, so check those out. But I can't believe I'm also recommending one that I didn't think I would, but it's actually Superbad.
It's almost as if you're tonally in different movies as well. You know, we talked a lot about Superbad.
Other than that, let me know your thoughts on this movie, your theories, things that I may have missed, who you were rooting for, and what you expect to see in Challengers 2 40X. Other than that, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll send you an I Told You shirt.